Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will be running through the Persistent Universe monthly report. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So, both the Squadron 42 and Persistent Universe monthly reports were released last week. I have already covered the Squadron report, which I will link in the description below. But today, it is the Persistent Universe's turn, so grab a drink, grab some snacks, because this is going to take a while. Now, kicking off with the animation team, they continued discussing creatures, crafting a matrix showing the skeleton classes that they think should exist and how the creatures could use them. So as we know, CIG have said that when it comes to creating the fauna of the verse, they won't just be designing some cool looking animals and then throwing them on the planets that look appropriate. They will be designed to fully fit within the planet's ecosystems, have their own needs, traits, behaviours and more, making them believable residents of that world and environment. And this sounds like that discussion is kind of happening now, or has been for a while, exploring the potential for how they will move and use their skeleton appropriately. For the character art team, they completed the Frontier Toxic and Desert Environmental Wear outfits, the Duster Faction's common outfit, and the Frontier Light helmet. Really looking forward to seeing these environmental outfits, as they will be a necessity in some cases for exploration in areas that are too dangerous to go in your regular clothing or armor, and these Frontier styles are specifically for the Pyro system. The team also prepared handoff sheets for the Headhunters gang and Duster outfits and began exploring an upcoming sub-item. Now, for the ship art team, the EU team completed the final pass on an all-new vehicle, and the LOD art pass began on one of its variants. Now, I do wonder if this is the MISC Mirror Division variants. Invictus will probably reveal this to us, but they are being very sneaky about it. Another new ship passed the white box stage, which is quite early on in the shipbuilding stage. This, they say, is nearing completion and will move to the next production stage once an upcoming review is completed. The team also wrapped up on the RSI Lynx. As we know, it has been committed to the 319 build now, while another upcoming ground vehicle progressed through the grey box stage. This, I suppose, could be the Tumbril Storm, which has a spot for it at this year's Invictus. Absolutely no idea what it is yet, but it is getting very close to Invictus now. So, an LOD pass on the SRV, the Argo SRV, was completed, and relating to this, a support pass for tractor beams began, which includes retrofitting the new vehicle tractor beam onto existing supported ships, while also ensuring that all valid components can be removed using the FPS tractor beam. So very happy to hear that they're now bringing this new vehicle tractor beam out to the rest of the ships, but I do wonder when the SRV will make it into the verse, and just what kind of gameplay it will bring initially. Maybe something to help with cleaning up the servers, like towing ships away from locations like stations and landing locations, and then taking them to scrapyards perhaps, where players could go and salvage them or purchase them. That would be very cool. Now, the component bay pass continued on the MISC Freelancer, which is to allow access to all the necessary components. The Crusader A1 Spirit continued through the LOD phase, passing the grey box review gate, while the C1 variant entered the grey box stage. They are making some great progress with these two ships, and I do certainly expect to see them this year. Likelihood is Q3, if not Q2. We could see the A1 for Invictus, with it being a militarized ship, and maybe the C1 for 320, considering that is sounding more and more like the cargo badge. Now, in the US, grey box on an upcoming vehicle was completed, with the team saying, "We have redesigned the dashboard and cockpit to allow for better visibility while driving in first-person view." So this sounds to me like a ground vehicle. I could be wrong. However, for me, if it is a ground vehicle, I am hoping that it will be either a ground salvaging vehicle or cargo transporter. And then finally, the team progressed with the Santokyai grey box, with several areas being redesigned and fleshed out, including the rail system within the glass canopy, and the team also created several iterations of the seat and settled on a design that highlights Apoa's use of Xi'an anti-gravity, as well as progressing on the new dashboard to further push the alien tech. That is sounding like it's going to be a pretty cool looking ship. Now, for the engine team, the core engine team ironed out tech delivered over the last few months, readying it to be integrated into the main development stream, which includes the new PAC or P4K format that will speed up the game's startup. For memory management, the team are continuing to develop an internal tool to better analyze memory usage, and later on, reduce the memory usage of the game. They also ported the last remaining legacy rendering passes to the new API, alongside deleting the remaining legacy code. Improvements to streaming systems began, with the team simplifying logic to update the per-instance streaming data, which will leave less code to maintain, plus they began moving more streaming logic away from the main thread to background works, which affects the frame time less and streams objects much faster. The entity lifetime system was updated, which is the system that kind of determines what gets deleted from the server first, now that persistent entity streaming is here, with new rules getting set up. For example, adding more aggressive cleanup to areas where gameplay is important, like hangars, which is a great idea, as there was often just random ship parts lying around in hangars that could be dangerous when taking off or coming into land. The physics team added winch support for the rope system, which allows them to switch between fixed and pulley attachments, and I can only assume that they are talking about a crane here, for maybe a low-tech area of the verse where tractor cranes are not an option, but I do also hope to see rope utilised in climbing and abseiling, which would be great for these caves and eventually mountains. And finally, improvements were made to the physically based wheeled vehicles on how they handle contact with hard surfaces. A new specialised AABB tree was introduced for use with signed distance fields, which favours a fast tree generating speed at the cost of slower culling code. Now, this is actually an update that I am very much looking forward to, as the wheeled vehicles are not fun to drive right now. They can be on open ground surfaces, but the PTV, for example, is an absolute nightmare. So once they roll out this wheeled vehicle physics update, I will be very happy, especially as then racing with wheeled vehicles will be so much more fun and realistic. Now, for the Arena Commander features team, they reworked the code for the VMA, which is the Vehicle Manager app, and loadout customization menus, which will enable it to work better alongside the new spawning tech introduced with persistent entity streaming. Hopefully this means we will get the new VMA on our Mobiglass as well, as that would be very handy. They also created several new game mode and filters for the front end to help players find the modes that they want. The design team finished 2 versions of the reworked Defod link track, which were successfully playtested, with the team saying that while only one of these maps can be the Defod link, after overwhelmingly positive feedback, they will be releasing the other one as a brand new 4th edition to the New Horizons Speedway collection, so that's nice. And finally, for Arena Commander features, they continued to polish the new Arena Commander front end, adding filters, detail to the game mode tiles, and video backgrounds to the mode buttons, plus designs were completed for an unannounced feature. Not sure what that is, again being very sneaky. Now, for the character and weapon features team, they began adding the EVA fuel to the actor's loadout, and they say, when implemented, players will use fuel as they accelerate and deaccelerate while free roaming in 0G, and if the fuel runs out, then we can use our oxygen supply as a low-grade emergency supplement, just to kind of get us to safety. However, jumping from surface to surface using the new 0G traversal system will not use fuel, making it a viable option for players travelling without thrusters, or if they are running low on fuel. And of course, the tractor beam can be used to navigate 0G environments as well. Now, this is really great to hear, and will certainly change the whole 0G environment once implemented, which hopefully won't be too long now. We saw this on the partner development stream at CitizenCon last year, so fingers crossed we're not waiting too long. But basically, when in 0G, players are going to need to constantly evaluate what the best option is. As EVA fuel is limited, you really don't want to be getting to the stage where you're using your oxygen supply to get somewhere, although having it for emergencies is obviously helpful. But if you have the option to grab onto things and use them to pull or push yourself around, like inside a ship for example, then you can save on using fuel altogether. But also the tractor beam will have a battery capacity, and so you might need the multi-tool, for example, to mine or salvage or heal. So you might not want to use that for 0G environments, but it does also mean that EVA jets won't come as standard with undersuits and will need to be equipped, which I'm sure we will see a whole line of potential EVA jet options all with varying trade-offs, but exploring a wreck in zero-G or a derelict space station, it is going to make it feel far more interesting, far more fun, and far more user-friendly as well, as EVA right now in the verse is just painful. Anyway, also for the character and weapon features team, they worked on flak ammunition, which generates a single projectile that on explosion breaks into additional projectiles that fire off in random directions, which also includes the option to add a proximity trigger to any projectile. And this ammo type will, I'm sure, be great fun to use, especially when defending ground locations. I can just imagine flying through a flak cloud, trying not to get taken out. That'll be a lot of fun. Now, for the gameplay features team, the EU-based team progressed with salvaging, and development of the munching feature began, with them saying the first prototype finished for internal iteration. For refining in ships, the first block out for the UI screen was created, and the gameplay beats of the various refining methods were discussed, with the team now having a clear understanding of what the different deliverables will look like and how the actual gameplay will play and feel. And of course, having mobile refinery ships will be such a great addition to just tie in with mining. I can just imagine settling down next to a few miners, offering my services to get their ores refined, for a fee of course. It just sounds like it will be a nice, chilled out process that will of course require skill and knowledge on how to do each different mineral. Now, the US gameplay team refactored how in-game ship prices and insurance expedite fees and times are calculated. The process is now automated based on the ship's stats and characteristics, and will continue to evolve as the amount of data factored into the price calculations increase. Now, this is actually quite important. CIG want us to cherish our ships and not be so flippant with getting them reclaimed, and this will mean that soon it will be more cost effective or even time effective to get recovered or repaired rather than claiming on insurance. Of course, bugs causing things like ship damage and whatnot need to be fixed before they can start rolling this stuff out, otherwise it will just feel so punishing. But once that's done, it will certainly encourage us to seek a repair station or maybe put out a recovery beacon to get towed somewhere. Now, as a result of 319 and redistributing the mineable resources, the team completed their initial pass on refineries. This will change how efficiently each location refines specific ores based on the abundance of mineral resources within that region, and along with this, they are currently rebalancing the sell prices of refined resources at admin and TDDs to account for this new distribution as well. Now, what this means is that if you take your mined ore to a refinery that is closest to where that mineable is in abundance, then chances are that the price or the speed for that refinery to refine those minerals will be much quicker than taking them further afield, as the refinery will have the capabilities to process that material quicker due to it being a common element in that area, whereas travelling further afield to sell your refined commodities would likely be beneficial, as it will be a less common and harder to attain mineral further from its source, so the miner will need to make quite a few decisions, it seems. And finally, for the team, focus was on the new cargo deck and external cargo loading game loop that will be used for ships such as the Hull C, and this will be the first step in a sequence of planned updates to make cargo gameplay more physical and tangible, with other fundamental concepts like cargo warehouses and asynchronous buying and selling of orders. So yet another huge aspect of the verse coming along quite well there, and pretty much going to be the backbone of the PU, is the economy, hauling goods from place to place, and seeing that CIG are now working to expand on this career path this year has got me very excited. Firstly, these cargo decks will be a location for maybe storing our cargo, likely for a fee, maybe to amass enough for transport efficiency or wait for a fluctuation in the markets, or maybe offer to sell to other players to come and pick it up and take it away. But the physical loading and unloading of all cargo ships, be that internal or external, is going to be a big part of this. Now, don't worry, we won't be loading a Hull C fully by hand on our own. You could if you wanted to, of course, that option will be available, but there will be many ways and methods to expedite the process, like cranes, larger boxes, ranging through from 1 SEU, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24 and 32 containers, tractor beams, trolleys, even hiring NPCs to do it for you. But the whole cargo hauling profession is going to explode this year, Not all at once, but spread out throughout the various patches, and it is going to be good to get into. Now, moving on to the mission features team, they began adding all ships into the enemy spawn pool to add greater variety to in-mission ship combat, which will not only make ship combat much more interesting, but also salvaging and scavenging, as we will start to come across a lot more variety of wrecks, and not just the same ships every time. Talking of which, work also continued on salvaging missions, with attention given to missions where salvage is used to restore valuable ships for profit. Now this sounds pretty amazing. Getting a mission to restore a ship, and then having to head out and find those materials to repair the hull, hopefully also its components, this would make sort of scrapyard gameplay so much more viable, especially when paired with the SRV. But one day, when all the physical materials are in, they have said that using the correct material for each specific part of that ship will likely be important for things like hull integrity. So really love the idea of this mission. Can't wait to learn more about it. Further for missions, development continued on the package extraction, data heist and consignment retrieval mission, while various ship interiors were marked up ready for combat. So again, very nice, lots and lots of new mission types coming along thick and fast, likely helped by all of the mission tools that they have been developing. And finally, on the code side, many much needed fixes were added, while work on players defending their ships is almost complete and will soon begin testing. So great to hear that. Being able to legally attack anyone on your ship who is not in your party or not meant to be there, helping to defend against trespassers. And don't worry, CIG know that the initial rollout of this isn't going to be flawless. There are still lots of things they need to bring in, a lot of nuances there, but they will build upon this. Now, for the graphics team, they worked towards enhancing the game's realism, functionality, and developer workflow with a range of long-awaited features and upgrades, like streaming locally compiled skinned meshes that is now possible, allowing for much quicker loading and replication of the release build. Water volume fine-tuning began for use on planets as well, specifically for atmospheric and fog volumes, and these integrations are part of the Quarter 2 water deliverables, which also includes water ripple simulation in all bodies of water, even puddles. And by Quarter 2, I'm assuming that means for 3.19, although I haven't looked yet. Now it says that a series of performance and compatibility improvements were made to the core renderer, which included the removal of some legacy CPU to GPU buffer management synchronization that could on occasion cause hangs in NVIDIA drivers. And the team began moving volumetric fog and gas clouds to Vulkan, with them currently looking to enable the feature following essential compatibility, functionality, and visual quality control fixes. Now this is great news to hear that they are now rolling out various elements using the new graphics API, and it'll be very interesting to see just how much performance all of this will bring as more and more gets set up. For the UI tech and graphics team, they made considerable progress on the interior map feature, with the map's core visual features getting completed, and now the current focus is on performance improvements and poly count optimizations. Also, a temporal super resolution prototype was integrated, paving the way for improved resolution and clarity across the entire game, which I do like the sound of. And finally, for the ongoing development of the Fire Tech, a new shared resource manager now efficiently manages 3D texture data across multiple fire emitters associated with a single voxel grid, with the voxel grid receiving several important bug fixes, including one that ensures accurate and consistent rendering of voxel-based elements within the game. And this fire hazard system has been ongoing for a long time now. Really can't wait to see how it all plays in game, from dealing with malfunctions, setting fire to internal parts of the ship, even setting fires ourselves as a way of distraction maybe, and also survival, as I'm sure all of the work done here will play heavily into crafting a campfire to keep warm or cook when we crash land on a planet. Now for the in-game branding team, they created the interior and exterior signage for Pyro's Ruin Station. I feel that station is going to be pretty epic, considering we've seen the lesser important stations already, and they look massive. Ruin Station is, I just can't even imagine. For the lighting team, they progressed with core work on cave lighting, which will be added to new and existing caves in the persistent universe, plus they also continued working on Ruin Station. For the live tools team, they progressed with the design of a new network operations center feature, and they are continuing the continuous improvements of the tool which aims to provide the best experience possible to its users. Plus, they have begun rolling out a new version of the internal error handling pipeline. Now, for the narrative team, they continued to give items, clothing, and armors names and descriptions, as well as working with design to improve salvaging missions. Additionally, they began working on upcoming content, including these new missions we just heard about, being package extraction, data heist, and consignment retrieval, while expanding the air traffic controller dialogue to support new gameplay, including the new cargo features. Also for narrative, work continued on Pyro, with them helping the content team develop lore for the system's initial contracts and how the players will interact with the various outlaw groups. Plus, they are planning upcoming work for further developing the game's Xeno languages. Now, for the online services team, they completed work on changes to long-term persistence, with the team saying that they rely on long-term persistence for players to be able to transfer progression between releases. LTP had to be completely rewritten for persistent entity streaming. The new system now monitors the global player inventory and simply creates and destroys the LTP records for aggregates stowed into or unstowed from inventories. Sounds pretty complicated. Now, we have a new team appear in this month's report called the Research and Development Team, and it says this team continued to focus on improving the temporal render mode for atmospheric and volumetric clouds, with the team saying, the major obstacles to overcome are still occasional noise and temporal artifacts in the ray-matched results for various view scenarios, as well as the upsampling of results under the presence of thin silhouettes with a given frame. Also, additional improvements to cloud shaping were implemented and are currently in the prototyping stage with the tech art team, with the goal being to improve the global versus local read of clouds, as well as their volumetric look along the vertical profile, all while avoiding shaping artifacts. And these changes, they say, should also help break up tiling and overcome certain shaping issues due to limited degrees of freedom when building a 3D volume from noise, a set of 2D textures, and a parameterization used to access them. So I'm not sure what most of that means, but I am very happy that they have a dedicated team researching and developing clouds, as being able to get clouds to the same standard or even better than that of Microsoft Flight Simulator will be great, while maintaining great performance, of course. Now, for the Systemic Services and Tools team, they progressed with the Service Beacon Refactor, which will be of huge importance in the verse, as this is going to be a very common method for requesting and accepting jobs and missions throughout the PU. So it needs to be a very robust, user-friendly and easy system to understand, and this can be for any job that we want, plus provide a proper rating system so we can avoid those people trying to gank us. Now, the team also completed various shop optimizations and begun prototyping mission markers for bounty hunting, while currently preparing to work on the virtual NPC service, which actually plays a fundamental role in NPC bounties and being able to track their movements, all part of taking bounty hunting to that next level. So lots of work going on for that profession right now, as we have seen on previous reports and inside Star Citizen. And finally, for the team, they planned out the next set of milestones for the Quantum Simulation and Odin tool as well. So really hope that this year we get to hear from Tony Zurevec about the progress that he has made on the Quantum Simulation and all that entails, as he will have been beavering away in the background, getting more and more done on this. Now, for the tech art and animation team, it says they made significant progress on head asset processing, which involved developing a semi-automated system that has not only reduced turnaround time, but also improved asset quality. And the team also continued with DNA integration, collabing closely with other teams to integrate their data with the rest of the code base. Now, I'm really intrigued to see just how good the new heads and character creator will look. I really hope they get to the point where we can just identify friends in-game by simply looking at their face. That would be very nice. Now, for the UI team, they improved several Squadron 42 features that they say may make their way into the persistent universe, which is referring to the improved visuals for the radial menu and various weapon screens. Plus, they worked on several bug fixes and performance improvements and began work on the new interior map. And finally, if you've made it through this far, congratulations, and I appreciate it. We have the visual effects team who supported work on several props and interactable items including new types of volatile cargo, plus they progressed with tasks for several locations such as Lorville and the various rocky caves, and a cleanup pass was also done on some older locations, which involved tidying up the level's layers and making sure placed particle effects were named correctly, as well as support for 2 new vehicles continued. So there you have it. That was this month's Persistent Universe Monthly Report. A lot of stuff going on, huge amounts of work is now coming around to completion, and it is just going to flood the verse with so much more to do. And of course, they will be continuing to expand. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, I stream 3 days a week at the moment over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there. The link is in the description below. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. It does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.